Hello guys, welcome back to another tutorial by Geek Together. Today we'll be diving into the new Apache Guacamole 1.6.0. So we're going to start by going over the Apache Guacamole 1.6.0 draft documentation, which I'm going to have this link down in the description section below. As we can see here, we have some new extensions included an auth band. The auth duo extension has also been enhanced. We'll see that as part of this video. And that is the same for the auth quick connect. We have another new extension called the Guacamole display statistics. And then you have the Guacamole history recording storage, which has been enhanced as well. As part of the SSO plugins, Apache Guacamole now supports certificate authentication. Okay, so we can see on here the rendering behavior for before 1.6.0. You can watch this video on your free time. I'm not going to play this, but basically the rendering has gotten better. So GuacD has been optimized on the server side to get better rendering. We still don't have GPU support yet. All of this is done, on the code side using the GuacD server protocol. As more for the enhancements, we have a dedicated audit permission now. So you know how before 1.5.5 and below, the audit permission is only available for admins. Now you can give audit permissions to non-admin users so they can kind of see the history of connections. But it doesn't give them access to, video recordings. It only lets them see the, usernames, IP addresses, and which servers they connect to. Apache Guacamole has also included, or the Apache Foundation has also included, points of interest in the session recordings. Now, when you record sessions, you do get keystrokes on the side, the right hand side of the screen when you're playing them back with points of interest. And as part of those points of interest, you can select them and it takes you right to the area of the video or the timestamp of that video when that specific point of interest or key events occurred. We'll see that as well today. We're also going to test the batch import of connections, which now you can import hundreds of connections details using a CSV file, JSON, or YAML. I'll show you some of the formats. As part of this video, we're going to test it using CSV. You can also now set up case sensitive logins. So, a user from LDAP maybe logging in with their username uppercase, and then a MySQL user or built-in Guacamole user can log in with the same name but lowercase. So now Apache Guacamole is able to differentiate between those two users. And we also have the complex access restrictions we talked about. Duo has been enhanced to support version 4. And then we also have hidden clipboard contents, which we'll go over in detail because now with this Apache Guacamole somewhat provides privacy. When you open the clipboard, it hides the clipboard content by default. You have to click on hide for it to open that, so before you can see the contents, which is another plus. And now they also include support for free RDP 3 and above. Free RDP 2 is still supported, but you can now compile the GuacD 1.6.0 with free RDP 3. So with that being said, now I'm going to go ahead and pull up my Apache Guacamole 1.6.0. So installation is the same. You're going to go on this page. You can download the client, download the server, install it, build it. As part of this video, I am not going to show you how to install this because I have previous videos and there's tons of videos out there on how to install Apache Guacamole. So we're just going to go straight into the features on the server that I already have installed. All right, this is my Apache Guacamole 1.6.0. You can see here on the right hand side, it has the version. And so we're going to log in here as an admin user with our username and password. Once you're logged into Apache Guacamole 1.6.0, it looks exactly the same like previous versions. But before we dive into the new features, we're going to head over to my command line so I can show you some of the new extensions I have installed. So first, I have the auth-duo installed, which we had in previous versions, but it's been enhanced. I also have the auth-restrict extension, which is a new extension for 1.6.0. I have the Guacamole display statistics extension, which is a new extension, and I also have the Guacamole history recording storage extension, which we had in the previous versions, but it's been enhanced for this version. Okay, we're going to head back to our web page. The first feature we're going to explore today is the auth-restrict feature. This is a new access control feature in Apache Guacamole that you can use to create rules to determine who can access what based on their usernames or group membership. For example, you can allow access for a specific group of users, let's say IT users, to be able to access specific servers or a group of servers at a specific time. Okay, that's enough of me talking. I'm going to go into settings. I'm going to go into users, or let's start with groups. I am going to create a new group here, and I'll call this group IT admins. With this IT admin group, now you can see we have some additional login restrictions. So I'm going to log into an Apache Guacamole 1.5.5 server so we can put this side to side and see how it looks. So on my left hand side, I have the Apache Guacamole 1.6.0 RC1 server, and on my right hand side, I do have Apache Guacamole 1.5.5. So as you can see right off the bat, when we try to create our new group, we have an additional login restriction. On the right hand side, we do not, because we only get the permissions. And also, if you look at the permissions, we get everything on the left hand side with this Apache Guacamole 1.6.0, and we have an audit system permission included. So now with Apache Guacamole, we can add times that members are able to log in. We can add times that members are denied from logging in, and this can apply to groups or users. We can also add hosts from which members may log in, and we can add hosts from which members may not log in from. So we're going to test this out and see how it works. So we'll create an admin group, and we'll only allow this admin group to log in all days, which is going to include Mondays to Sundays. A little disclaimer, if you want to do this right, make sure your Apache Guacamole servers time is running correctly. So if you did a new install, you want to make sure the time is accurate on the server. If not, you might have some problems with this. So we're going to select all days. We only want the IT group should be able to log in from 8 a.m. in the morning until 5 p.m. in the evening. Those are the only times they're allowed to log in every day. And they are allowed to audit the system, but they are not administrators. So we're going to save this. And now that that's saved, we're going to go back here and create a user. So I'll create a new user, and I'll call this Joe Hansen. And I'll give it a password. And as you can see, we can add those same restrictions to a user as well. But since this user is going to be part of our group, we don't need to worry about that. So the only thing we're going to do is add them to the IT admin group. And once we do that, we're going to save. And I will log out here from this server. And now I can try to log in as Joe Hansen. As you can see, we get a new error message that says the login for this user is not allowed at this time. Okay, so if I was going to log in back here as guacadmin, and I go back to settings, and I change these group settings, let's say I make it just users are allowed to log in all days from 8 a.m. to 11:30 p.m. Sorry. I am currently recording this video Eastern Time, United States, so New York time. If I save this, and for this, you don't need to do a Tomcat restart. It just works real time. So if I log out there, and I'm going to log in back as Joe Hansen, as you can see, now we were able to log in because we've changed the restriction time and it's 10:47 p.m. so we're able to log in. Another thing we can do with the auth-restrict extension is restricting users from logging in using a specific IP address or IP addresses or hosts. In this case, we want the IT admin group to only be able to log in from a specific IP address. So for example, the computer I'm currently working on, the IP address is 10.100.10.6. So we're going to put on here 10.100.10.7. And we can add multiple entries. So we're going to put 10.100.20.5. These are the only two hosts that anyone that's logging in as an IT admin is able to use to log in to our Apache Guacamole system. So if we save that, and if we try to log in as Joe Hansen, we get the error that this user is not allowed to log in from the host. If we go back in here and we change that restriction to add a new entry, and we save that, notice you don't have to restart for the auth-restrict extension. It works real time. So if we go back to Joe Hansen, he's able to log in. Pretty cool. So before we continue talking about features, I want you to keep in mind the auth-restrict extension can be applied to users, groups, and connections. So depending on how you want to set this up and how your organization does things, you can apply the restrictions by user, groups, or connections. Do one final test with the auth-restrict extension. So right now, if you look at my time, it says it is June 14, 10:49 p.m. So what happens if we change this to 10:51 p.m. and we save this? And then we have the user Joe Hansen logs in, and then we're going to see what happened when 10:51 p.m. reaches. So we're going to log in as Joe Hansen here. It is 10:50. We're going to wait for the clock to change to 10:51, and we're going to try to refresh our page or, navigate somewhere around Apache Guacamole and see what happens. Since we now have 10:51 p.m., we can try to go in here and head over to settings. Apache Guacamole reminds us that the login for this user is not allowed at this time. No matter how many times we refresh the page or try to move away from the page, we are not going to be allowed to connect anymore. That is the other good thing, or that's the other use case for the Apache Guacamole auth-restrict extension, and that is how it behaves. So the next feature we're going to review today is the display statistics feature. Obviously, this feature comes as an extension. It is not built in out of the box of Apache Guacamole. You need to load in the display extension in order to be able to use this. What does this extension do? It adds a simple but powerful usage dashboard to the admin interface when you log into a connection, RDP or SSH. It lets you see metrics such as, protocol usage, average session duration, all in real time while you're using that connection. So I have a remote desktop connection here set up. I'm just going to open that up so we can see. Once that's logged in, if you look below on here on the screen, this is where we have the statistics display. So we have, the remote desktop on the left side. We have the Guacamole servers, speed, the Guacamole clients, and we can also see drops or connection drops in real time as we use Apache Guacamole. And that is going to be the same if you're using an SSH connection. So while we're here, the other thing we're going to talk about the new Apache Guacamole 1.6.0 is the security that has been added to the clipboard. So if I do Shift Control Command on my Mac and you look on the left hand side, normally on Apache 1.5.5, the clipboard is going to display its contents by default. But now with the new version of Apache Guacamole, you can see that we have to click to view the clipboard contents, which is good because sometimes when you're using Apache Guacamole, you do copy and paste sensitive data such as passwords, some other things that you may not want to be displayed, especially if you're sharing your screen as soon as you open the clipboard. You want to be able to click to view before you see what's in your clipboard. The moment you exit, it closes and you go back, it gives you the option to click to view. And then we're going to review the session recording and keystroke piece of Apache Guacamole. So once you load in the new extension for the session recording in Apache Guacamole 1.6.0, it includes the new option where you can look at sessions and you have a keystroke option for you to be able to fast forward to specific key events. So if I go into history, and obviously you have to be an admin user, you can see on here that I have a bunch of key events that are recorded every time someone accesses my Apache Guacamole server. So if you go to view, you now have the option on the right hand side that tells you about keystroke activity or keystroke logs. And you also see where you have on-screen activity events and when you have keyboard activity events as well on the graph. So if I click on keystroke logs, on the last recording, we didn't really make any keystrokes. So I'm going to exit here. I'll go back. And we're going to simulate a connection where we do a lot of things. So I'm going to go to home. I'm going to go to workstations and I'm going to connect to an SSH jump box. So once I connect, there's going to be some things that I'm going to do. Let's say I'm going to create a new folder, call it test, and I will cd into that folder. I will create a file called test.txt. I will open that file. This is a test. And I'll save that file. I can create another file. So once we do that, we can exit the connection. Okay, and I'm going to go back over to my settings. I'll go to history. And if I try to open this and click on view to watch the recording, on the right hand side, we can see our keystrokes are listed. So the other feature we're going to review today, which you don't need an extension for, is the batch import capability of Apache Guacamole. So if we head over to settings and try to create new connections, you're going to see now you have the import options. from Apache Guacamole 1.6.0, you can now do bulk imports using CSV, JSON, and YAML files right from the web interface. No more hand adding 50 to 100 RDP entries at one time. You can just make a file of all those connections, including the username, password, and you add that. So if we go here to the documentation and we go to batch import, the documentation shows us the format on how to build the file to be able to make those imports. So for the CSV, this is how the format looks like. It includes name, protocol, username, passwords, hostname, groups, users, and Guac the encryption type. You don't have to put all of the attributes. You can put most of them. For example, if you want users to be able to log in with their own username and passwords, you can do the name, the protocol. You can set the group for permissions and the Guac the encryption type if this is an RDP connection, and leave the username, or obviously the host name, but leave the username and password blank so the user is prompted to log in. And here's another example of how the JSON format is going to look like, and then for the YAML format. So for today, we're going to use a CSV format. So I want the users to be prompted for their username. So I'm going to take that out and I'm just going to leave that. And I'll do here, SSH. We'll make another copy. We'll call this DC. We'll make this RDP. And then you want to give it a separate IP address. So 3389. Okay. We're going to save this, put that in my downloads folder, and I'll call this test.csv. So once you save that, we're going to head back to Apache Guacamole and we're going to import test.csv. And if you do that, you don't get any errors. You're going to select import. And as you can see, our 3 connections were imported successfully. So if we head to connections, now we have the Linux shell, web server, and DC added. So if we open one of them, you can see all the information we did put in was added, except for the ones we didn't add. So if a user was able to use this connection now, they're going to successfully connect, but they'll be prompted for authentication because we didn't include that. This is a pretty useful feature for Apache Guacamole. So I, for one, appreciate this because I've had to manually create multiple connections in Apache Guacamole every time. Another feature we're going to examine today is the of us being able to give a non-admin user privileges to be able to audit the system. This requires you to upgrade your database if you are upgrading from 1.5 to 1.6. I can make a separate video on how to do that. But if you're doing a fresh install of 1.6.0 with a fresh install of a database for Apache Guacamole, including the schema, you don't have to do anything. So if we go back to users or groups and we get to our IT admin group we created, if you remember, we did give this group the audit system permission. Note they are not admins, but now they can audit and view connection history. So if I save this, I'm currently logged in as the Guac admin. If I go to history, if you take a close look at the history, for me, it is different because I do have visibility of all the connections, including the logs, which includes recordings. So if I log in now as Joe Hansen, who is not an admin, but we did give him audit permission. If we go into settings, now we have the option to be able to view the history or the logs, but we cannot view recordings because we're not an administrator. Pretty interesting. If you have limited admins or help desk, or someone in your environment that you want to be able to view the history of when users logged in and for how long, but you prevent them from seeing the actual session recording. We're going to talk about today, which is basically an enhancement, because all the other previous versions have this, is the Duo extension. The Duo extension has been enhanced to meet the Duo version 4 SDK, as it's stated here in this documentation. So I'm going to show you what changes you get with the new Duo authentication or MFA piece. So first of all, what I'm going to do, or what you want to make sure, is that you have the Duo 1.6.0 installed. And once you have that installed, you want to go into your guacamole.properties. And if you look in here, some of the parameters change with Duo. In fact, all of them changed. So I'm going to put two systems side by side so you can take a look at that. You can see now the Duo parameters has changed to Duo API hostname, Duo client ID, a Duo client secret, which is the same thing you used, the same three things you used in the previous versions. Because if we go to 1.5.0, we have the same thing, but it's called API hostname, Duo integration key, and Duo secret key. And then you have an application key, which is a string that you generate. You don't have to do that anymore. You just have the API hostname, the client ID, the secret, and you need a Duo redirect URI. Because what's gonna happen is, once you load this, I'm gonna restart. For this, you have to restart Tomcat. So once you load this and you try to authenticate to your Apache Guacamole, what is going to happen is you get redirected authentication page. You can see on here, I now have the Duo API. It moves me to Duo, which is why you need your Apache Guacamole's redirect URL here, or URI, because once you accept the push, it redirects you back to your host name or IP address. In my case, I'm using a fully qualified domain name because this is a test server that I'm hosting in the cloud. It redirects you back on there. So that's the changes. Pretty neat. It complies with the latest version of Duo. So a lot of you who are using this in the production system and organization, this should be a very interesting feature. It will be something that you will want to upgrade to, unlike the old version of Duo. So the very last feature we're going to review today, which is also an extension, is the Apache Guacamole SSL. So if you notice, when you download the extensions for SSO, there was a new option for SSL. Unfortunately, we are not going to install the extension or set it up today because it is beyond this video. I'm going to create a separate video on how to do SSL authentication. But if we look at the documentation for 1.6.0 under single sign-on, we are now able to use smart cards to log in. So it's kind of like the regular SSO authentication, where you have the option below on the left hand side, and then it's going to prompt you to select a certificate. So you can use a smart card like a YubiKey that supports certificates, or you can have the user install their certificates on their browser or computer. So for a future video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a YubiKey that supports certificates, and we're going to set this up. Pretty neat way to authenticate your users or your home lab that makes you look cool or gives you experience as a system admin that you can use out there in the real world for organizations that use certificate authentication to authenticate their users for web apps. So with that being said, this brings us to the end of this video, and I thank you all for watching. Please do like the video, make a comment and share, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel.